Welcome, everybody. This is the Decriminalize Nature podcast.
My relationship with nature ain't illegal. Plant power to the people. Plant power to the people. Where you dream is where I'll meet you.
Sounds like we're talking about a little decolonization in here.
A little
sprinkles
bit,
of decolonizing the mind and
the heart and the body. Yes.
And if I may riff off that with kind of the bigger message of Decriminalize Nature into the world, right? The decolonization. That stems from opening up to the messages of the plants, which is what happens when you start living from a place of love and compassion. Mm-hmm. You start from there and you go, okay, how would the world be different?
Right.
And so as we've spread nationally, maybe you can speak about some of our principles and why we adopted these principles that we share with our groups nationally, including stay on the message of love and compassion, because everybody in this world has trauma because we live in a traumatic world, right? Whether you're in the privileged class or underprivileged or wherever you're at, everybody comes into this space with trauma. But everybody is that original light that gave life. And so when we speak to folks, we speak about the beauty of these plants, the ability of them to heal, the science, but also the ancestors and the history. And it's really important for all of us to stay on a positive message, to keep educating the people of the world, because we've lost that history with the plants. Many of us have, many ancestors, many communities still have that, particularly indigenous communities, but us in the Western world and urban communities have lost that connection. So really important to stay positive. Maybe, Larry, if you want to share a little bit about our principles and why we adopted them.
Yeah, and I think that's, I think this conversation about agency and empowerment and principles, like they all kind of flow together, and I think that's the tricky spot we're in right now. We're trying to decolonize the mind while we're in the basket. We're in the structure, right? And so how do we kind of dance and navigate between the two? And I think this is something that I was having trouble with at the beginning. This is what's really been exciting about Decriminalize Nature Oakland for me, was that I had completely disillusioned with any policy, any political process. Government doesn't work for us, they work for other people. There's no way that anyone would actually move this forward. And what we've found, and has been really beautiful to see, and I think is really important, given that what we're really trying to do here is get over 50 plus years, 1,000 plus years of misinformation about these plants being dangerous or risky or whatever negative things people say about it. So a big part of this is like educating your elected officials or educating your policymakers, educating your politicians. And for me, that was mind-blowing, because like I saw a process that happened. I saw, political leaders who were interested in their community. I saw an opportunity to change someone's mind or shift someone's opinion. Change someone's mind. So have someone understand really like what I know somebody that has PTSD. I know somebody that's at the end of their life and should deserve medicine. I know somebody that's dealing with other traumas or depression or anxiety. Yeah. I know someone that has cluster headaches. I know somebody. I know somebody who wants to connect with their inner spirit. I know somebody who wants to expand. I know somebody who wants to be creative. Like across the board. Yeah. These medicines and these plants and fungi can really help people tap into that. And I think it was really mind-opening to see that almost everybody we talked to knew somebody or had a friend, or this conversation is happening. And I think that's what's beautiful about this, is we really look at this as like the narrative was already there, and we're just kind of like holding on, and it's like people were ready, and it wasn't maybe happening with the other conversations that were happening. So now this conversation comes in, which is about empowerment. It's about grow, gather, gift, It's about, making sure that we can work with our elected officials and move things forward in a good, positive way. And I think that's been really a big part of our values.
And the inclination of people in this world now is to hurry up, push things, get it done, right? The ends justify the means. That's the idea.
Transaction. Got
to get it done. And so the tendency is to go around your elected officials. And there's a big danger in that, is if you leave out your leaders, then you leave out the big part of the equation, which is you have to work within your community. Absolutely. They are elected leaders of your community. If you don't bring them on board, if you're working around them, then you're not really building community. Because building community starts at home, and it starts with mental changes and idea changes and mind changes within your own community. And so it's really important, this going through your elected officials, to work with them is key. And so we're really pushing that message to our groups.
I'm actually glad y'all brought that up, and not to cut you.
Go ahead.
You know, you're my queen, so I ain't trying to cut you. But what came up for me is shifting from lens to mirror. And the lens is always easier to look through than the mirror. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what happens. You know, it's them, it's those officials out there, it's those people out there, and, you know, this right here happens a lot. It's them. And, well, you know, if the Black Lives Matter protesters weren't protesting, then our city would look, well, if the white people weren't doing this. And it just keeps us in this constant polarization of constantly othering, right? Once we move to that mirror, then it's like, okay, I can only see within you what I see within myself. And for me, that's what a lot of the plant medicine work does.
Yes.
It brings up you.
Yeah.
Dissolve the ego. You can only see you, right?
Yeah.
So you start seeing your trauma, you start seeing your possibilities, you start seeing, you know, colors that you've never seen before, you know, this different experiences, right? And I think for me, it goes back to what you're saying about the agency, and with that agency, stepping into those possibilities. It is possible to work with our city officials. Yeah, they're human, y'all. Come on,
they're human beings. Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I think that actually speaks a little bit to what I was thinking about when you were sharing about how we build community. Because when we've started to have conversations, particularly in communities of African descent, we've noticed that more and more folks are engaging in plant-based medicines more than we had thought, right? Just from the outside, but it's really the conversation. It's like now there's space to have the conversation. Now there's a platform for us to have this conversation. And I think, I think that it's more, I think it's more accessible. I think it's more utilized. And I think the framework that we're thinking about in terms of how we share, particularly coming from it being, this is ritual, right? It's not recreation. It's a ritual that we go through in order to get to our higher states of who we are, the best versions of ourselves, right? Yeah. And so being able to think about that and have that framework to have the conversation with folks is really, like I say, a part of the liberation process. So it's exciting.
Thank you, listeners, for listening to the Decriminalize Nature podcast.
My relationship with nature ain't illegal. Plant power to the people. Plant power to the people. Where you dream is where I'll be.